We are here today to celebrate and remember the life of Paul Steiner. Born on March 27, 1924 in Bellwood, Pennsylvania, he has always had a deep love of the Pittsburgh area. He was one of the last children of Genevieve and George Steiner, and had spent his growing up years playing around the tracks down by the current waterfront and had many funny tales to tell of his siblings and friends' exploits along the river. One of the stories he told was of making skis of curtain rods and hitching rides on the trains up the ramps. He did this until he learned that getting a face full of gravel wasn't as fun as the rides he was hitching. He remembered very clearly how Homestead looked when the steel mills were operating and how the men would stream out on the streets to spend their cash on payday.
His first building experience was as a teenager when he built a golf cabin in the woods as a fort. He and his friends collected scraps of wood wherever they could find it, including the local lumber yard. That's what I said, including the local lumber yard.
Yeah.
He even installed electricity in the cabin.
He stole that too.
He stole the electricity. This came to an abrupt stop when the local policeman asked that he stop liberating the wood from his yard. Paul will be remembered as a handsome and hard worker in any employment that he undertook. He worked on the railroads before he entered the Marines in 1943. He vowed then that he would never return to work on the railroads.
During his 2 years of active duty in the Pacific Theater, he was part of the liberation of the Philippines. He enlisted as a gunner on active duty on the USS Ticonderoga. He was a respected veteran of World War II. He was honorably discharged with the rank of Field Music First Class and returned to Pittsburgh to build houses and marry his first wife, Margaret.
He met his most recent love in Zellwood, Florida in 2000, where they were introduced at a dinner by Gay's brother, Larry Pomeroy. In Gay's words, she was thrilled to meet somebody who was bright and articulate and who talked about other things besides the infractions of the neighbors. During their courtship, they went out to dinner, traveled to a wildlife center in Florida, visited Sarasota Springs, and explored new areas of Florida. Paul always had the heart of a child and his enthusiasm for holidays such as Halloween and Christmas, dressing up and decorating with lights and music. This, of course, meant that visiting Mount Dora with all the town all in white was a must.
Paul and Gay returned to Pittsburgh so he could again spend time with his family. He always enjoyed being a part of the everyday lives and boisterous celebrations of his brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, and their extended families. He was especially fond of skiing with his nephew Bill and was still skiing at 80 years old. His compatriot brother Dave was always around to add to and encourage his stories. He was always happy to extend or accept an invitation to visit for dinner or a cup of coffee and sit around telling and listening to stories. We were racing things.
Gay and Paul were wed on March 27, 2011 in a small ceremony in their home in Montville, PA. You never saw a happier man than on that day. Paul's face was brimming with pride and warmth. A tribute to Paul would be incomplete without mentioning his deep love of music and picture-taking. He has boxes and boxes of slides downstairs that document much of his life and the areas he has lived in. He loved beauty in all its forms, including pretty women and beautiful music. As he lost his sight, he became even more determined to take videos of life and continue videotaping until very close to his actual passing.
Paul will always be remembered as a man of surprising gentleness, deep integrity, and refreshing honesty.
He had a wonderful way of combining all these characteristics with a quirky sense of humor that often caught you off guard. He was a wonderful husband to Gay and an encouraging stepfather to her 4 children. He leaves behind a lasting legacy in Pittsburgh in the homes that he built, the stories he told, the Steelers he loved, and the many lives that he touched. His service to his country was commendable, and he will be very much missed by many.